Hello, everyone, and welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone. We've got a special, slightly different episode for you today. We've got two bounce decks that aren't running Darkhawk, made independently, that both have above 70% win rates in about 70-80 game sample sizes, real sample sizes. We've got three Blobnose decks from three of the very best players in the game, those being W, Lamby, and Safety. The other two decks are Drewski and Ocean. We've got weekend mission decks, three decks for Blob that are not Thanos decks, three decks for Sebastian Shaw, and only two are Surfer decks to make sure that you have some fun while finishing your weekend missions. We also have a ton of advice from Lamby late in this video that he posted on Twitter about how to play Thanos decks, about what makes Blob so good, and following Lamby's thought patterns is usually a pretty damn good way to do better at Marvel Snap. We're going to get into the decks very soon, but we've got a few little segments first. First, please hit that sub button, hit that like, hit that follow. We'd greatly appreciate the support. We're trying to grow as best we can. We just hit that 7,000 subs. It's a huge goal for us that we just reached. Let's keep it going. Help us grow. We're doing our very best to bring you the best Snap content. We bring you at least 3 new decks every single weekday, along with guides on how to play them, pro tips, bundle guides, all the Marvel Snap news, everything you need to make your Marvel Snap journey both successful and a lot of fun for yourselves. So please hit us with that sub. We'd really appreciate if you'd help us grow. And if you're willing, likes, comments, ringing that notification bell, all that stuff is huge in helping us grow. It's free to you and wonderful for us. So hopefully you do it. We also maintain a giveaway sheet. You can find it in the comments to this video every single day. This is updated all the time by our friend Banshee. We just keep every giveaway in Marvel Snap on a document. This way you can find some great creators and get some free stuff. It's just something we do for the community, so hopefully you like it. Also, I'm just going to apologize. I'm not going to sit on that screen. I don't like the way that screen is organized. I'm just going to apologize. We hit 7,000 subs, and I'm doing, well, whatever. I usually do a giveaway every 1,000 subs. I do lots of giveaways on the channel. We constantly give away like 15 season. Well, we give away more than 15 season passes a season. We give away a couple bundles a season. But Christmas is coming, and I want to like sort of spoil my kid a little bit. So I'm gonna hold off on the extra giveaway this month. I promise to make it up to you in January. So sub, and I'll make sure that we get some extra cool giveaway stuff in January, just a little bit further from Christmas, because my wife may have gotten a fancy bring and a Pink concert that were a little expensive, and I gotta buy the son the 10,000 things. So like, I promise you, I got you. Don't sleep on it. I will make this up, but hey, every 1,000 subs, we do a really big giveaway on top of all the other giveaways. We just gave away a $70 bundle of Super Tech on like 4 days ago, so don't stress it. All right, today's basic outline, we begin as we always do with our questions of the day. We love our questions of the day. Then we've got Werewolf Bounce, post Darkhawk from Drewski and Ocean. They both came up with distinct individual versions. Drewski posted his. He hit infinite with it. Oceans was played by our friend Obi Haved. You should check out Obi on Twitch if you haven't. Obi played it post infinite to another 70% win rate. So both against bots and not, it hit that win rate. I'm taking a sip of water. I just did a podcast. Sorry about that. We also have our weekend mission guides. We have 3 decks for Blob without Thanos, then 3 decks for Sebastian Shaw. And the reason we're talking about Blob without Thanos is because we are going to talk about Blob with Thanos from Lamby, W, and Safety. And I messed up this slide. This is always the slide I mess up. I'm telling you, because I do this one like last, and then if I get called away, I always start before I look back at the slide. The Lamb, you can find Lamby at Lamby Series TV on Twitch. Safety Blade is just Safety Blade on Twitch, and on Twitch, W is W streaming, W underscore streaming. Cool. So make sure you check them out. They're brilliant players. I'm going to talk about who they are and why we care about their Thanos decks and why their Thanos decks are so close together as we get to them. Because there are not 3 players that if they come close to a build that like you should trust more. Cool. Like this is must do. Our first question of the day is from Mr. Troublesome. Mr. Troublesome often gets to rank 83 and gets stuck every season. I have advice. My real advice, my 100% serious advice, is one of two things is happening. You are either not snapping with advantage enough, you need to be snapping turn 2 or 3 when you have an advantage. and that will fundamentally increase your growth rate. And two, and I would almost bet this because this is like everyone, the not snapping enough hurts, but the real killer is not retreating enough. You're very likely staying in to see, you're staying in for games, you don't know the meta well enough. Pay attention to this channel, pay attention to the Marvel Snap Zone or your site of choice tier list. Make sure you know those decks. You'll know what people are doing if you think through what their turn patterns are. That's what the turn by turn here is for. You'll know what they're going to do when. You'll know when they have it, when they don't, based on when they snap and how and when they play cards. My favorite example for this is on turn 3, after a Zabu, your Darkhawk player, and obviously this is less true after Blob, doesn't play Rock Slide. That means they don't have it. And if they play Iron Lad and Iron Lad doesn't hit Rock Slide, that's another turn they don't have Rock Slide, right? So you can guarantee yourself that kind of thing fundamentally just by paying attention, but you have to know the decks and the play patterns, and you need to retreat. You need to be like, oh, they just went Zabu Rock Slide. If they snap, unless you have your full combo already, you're likely to draw a rock. You need to run. You need to make sure you're running when you're not favored, not when you're going to lose. You're snapping when you are favored, not when you're going to win. We're going to look before the end of this video at a whole bunch of tips from Lamby about how to play today's decks. I also have a playlist here on the channel. It's called Marvel Snap Pro Tips. It's, I don't know, 11 videos, 14 videos. Jeez, I've been doing this a while. Right now of just different pro tips. The first one were shorts. I thought I was going to do these as shorts, but they ended up being full videos, parts of full videos. Check the pro tips. They will help you. Write them down and practice them one at a time. And as you find yourself internalizing them, move on to the next one. And if you're really struggling, you feel like you're really having trouble with this video, right here, number 12 on the list, has tips from Chad Tompkins. Chad is one of our... Oh, I put an H in his name. There's no H in his name. And Tompkins. Sorry about that, Chad. Chad basically gave us all like 10 straight beginner's tips that we looked over and talked about. Those beginner tips are like where you start. Work on those. I promise you, you can hit infinite. You got this. And if you need like help and moral support, double check the Marvel Snap Zone Discord. I'm hanging out in the podcast chat with the host section. So if you would like moral support, I've got it. Our community's got it. We got you. Join us. O Dolphinately asks the following: how do you feel about variant pricing? Seems a bit odd to me that something as subjective as art is priced differently by second dinner. For example, I adore my 700 gold hips, but don't like many of the 1200 gold variants. I think there needs to be some sort of standardization of pricing. For example, 1200 gold variants need to have more pronounced animated effects or something like that. Something measurable. So, the difference is pretend and it's on purpose. There was a time, and I don't know, Cam or somebody likes to tell this story. There was a time in beta where pixels were the most sought after variants. Everyone you know of in the game right now hates pixels, or 90% of the players you know of hate pixels. In beta, pixels were the one thing you couldn't get from the collection track. So pixels were highly sought after. They were prized. They were status symbols. 1200 gold variants, even though they are exactly the same as 700 gold variants, carry extra prestige. Excuse me. And so people want them. People are also often like, why can't I just buy whatever variant I want whenever I want? Because then you could wait. Because then you buy every variant you want and you never spend money again. What they do is they show you, let's say that you wanted the Hip Zabu, which is a card I very much wanted. That shows up once every 3 months, which means you better buy it then. You better figure out how to buy it then. It creates FOMO, and FOMO sells more cards. It creates a false scarcity, a false prestige. All these things work in our brain to make us buy things more. Now, a lot of people are going to say that's predatory. And yeah, to some extent. But here's the deal. They have to monetize something. Card acquisition, you can basically get every card if you optimize and don't buy the variants, which they're trying to get you to do, right? You can basically get every card by just buying the season pass. I think of this game as a $10 a month subscription, which is not a problem where I live in North America, but is a problem in other parts of the world. I'm doing my best to help alleviate that and find information about that, advocate for that, but there's only so much I can do. I'm not second dinner. So In North America, that $10, this is a $10 a month subscription game. You can basically, if you're wise and smart and pay attention, check the pinned video on this channel, get all the cards with some time. Cool. That's not really monetized. That's monetized, right? They want everyone who plays that can afford that to do that, but that's not like really monetized. That's a way to make like the baseline. If they want to be profitable, they need to sell something, and they're not selling us cards, so they need to sell us variants. And so they have 1,000 tricks to sell us variants, which I'm fine with at the end of the day. You either have self-control or you want it more than you have self-control, as long as you're not like buying variants instead of feeding your children, right? Like, okay, they want to make money, they have to make money. That's the system we live in. I want the game to continue. Sell the variants at whatever with whatever tricks you need to in order to make money. I'd rather you do that than impact my ability to play the game, players' ability to play the game. That makes sense? Hopefully you don't disagree too hard. I know I'm going to take a lot of crap for that in the comments, but so be it. That is just my perspective. Finally, every day, it feels like I get a bunch of people going, hey, man, you do a lot in your life. And if you want to know what that whole lot in your life is, check yesterday's video. I talked about my daily schedule. And everyone's like, you're going to burn out. You should take a rest. You should do 4 days a week, not 6 days a week, so on and so forth. So, like, I know it doesn't seem like it, and I know people are really worried about this, and I greatly appreciate it, and I love you for caring. I really do. But this is my release. There's a lot of stress in my life. This isn't it. I really enjoy this. This isn't, like, something I do that, like, it's time-consuming, right? But it's not, like, difficult for me or, like, pressure-filled or anything else. I'm just kind of talking. I'm a teacher, right? So, like, I've been at points in my career had to build 3 or 4 different slideshows a day that I can then deliver to keep children interested who would otherwise have no interest if I were not able to deliver it. And that's like when you're first starting, any young teacher knows this, insanely stressful. I've done that for 17 years. I can talk. I can build a slideshow. Like, that's not hard. And this is talking about something that's fun and easy and I care about. And it's nice. So, like, I appreciate it. If I ever need to cut down, literally, it won't be a pressure thing. It'll be a time commitment thing. And all I would do is I would cut Sundays. So, like, you're going to get at least 5 days of videos from me. I guess I might as well just say this now. I make a decent, nothing like amazing, but I make a little bit of money from the channel. But we also have the podcast, and the podcast is fundamentally a money loser. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a Patreon, probably around Christmas. And I'm going to offer some exclusive stuff. It's not going to be like, hey, you have to join it. And there will be literally no change for any of you who don't want to join it. You will get every single bit of access to me, every single bit of content, every single bit of articles, everything else you've always gotten for free. And then it'll be like, hey, once a month, I'll do like an extra long podcast talking about X, Y, or Z. Maybe there'll be like some priority question answering, stuff like that. Nothing fancy, but you'll get videos like a few hours early if you want them. That kind of stuff. So if that's interesting to you, that would really help support, and honestly, the financial pressures of my life would be greatly alleviated if that took off a little bit. But like burning out from the videos, no, we're good. But thank you so much for your concern. I really, really do appreciate you. If you'd like your question read out in tomorrow's video, please leave one in the comments. Our first deck is the homie Drewski. I wanted Drewski to be first. There's a lot of big names in this video. Drewski should be one of those big names. Stream all the time, but his streams are a freaking delight. He's one of the best Twitter follows in the game, and he made half of your favorite streamers stream overlays. The other half is my boy BitTwiddle. But like, if you want an overlay, hit me up. I'll hook you up with either Drew or BitTwiddle, and you'll be like set for life. The one you see around me right now, that's Drew. That's BitTwiddle. Drew is also phenomenal. He does like everyone's OBS, Twitch stuff. I don't Twitch. We'll talk about that one day if anyone wants me to. Okay. This deck is sick. This was like the Darkhawk deck that KM and Lamby were thinking was the best deck in the game for like a week before Blob came out. Except it just says, okay, so what if I don't have Darkhawk? One, the deck gets worse. But 72%, 38 and 15 is not that much worse. It's difficult to quantify exactly how good multiple Iceman and multiple Black Widow is. You are losing the multiple Korg / Rock Slide, but multiple Iceman can be every bit as punishing. We, of course, still have the Annihilus package. The Annihilus package is similar to the Shuri package for at least turn 4 and 5 in terms of power, and then you're relying on Shang-Chi, Shadow King, and Werewolf for that turn 6 power burst. Everything else here is fairly self-explanatory. You really, really, really want to use Iceman, Widow, and Nico multiple times, and if you get a couple demons, that helps too. Spider Ham, you have to decide whether you want to use multiple times. Very often I use him once and then never play him again. I'll like Falcon him back. I'll play him again if I'm werewolfing because they won't play the pig, and if they don't play the pig, then I'm just hitting a pig again. What the hell's the point of that? Also remember, Shadow King will bring a pig down to 0 power. This is Ocean's version of the deck. Ocean is a phenomenal player, one of the Lambie fan. Just brilliant player. He's going to get a big ego about this, but stellar. This deck is 34 and 11 in Obi's hands post infinite. It's very similar. Look, see how similar? Here we cut Iceman, which hurts my soul because I was so excited to run Iceman in this. For Forge, which just says your Black Widow's a 2/3. Now it's a 2/5, which is, pretty damn nice. I'm going to tell you I'm going to die on Iceman Hill for this one, but hey, maybe I'm wrong. And then I'm not sure what's better. It's got Shang or Enchantress, and one of the two is right and one of those two is wrong, and I'm honest to God not sure which. It's possible both are right, honestly, but I don't think so. So, Enchantress has a lot of power because Ms. Marvel is still one of the 3 best cards in the game. There's a lot of Professor X all over the place, a lot of that kind of nonsense. And if you just drop Enchantress in that lane, you fundamentally ruin their life. However, Shang is Shang, right? Shang is Shang. And Shang is backbreaking. You got Shadow King to deal with Blob. You didn't draw Shadow King. You drew Shang. Have a great day, Blob. Bye. Right? Both of these decks' win rates are utterly silly. Both of these decks are extremely powerful if you have these decks. And hey, these are hard decks to have, which is, I think, their real downside. Annihilus is a Series 5 that came out last month. Werewolf is a Series 5 that came out the month before. And I think Nico came out the same month as Werewolf. Excuse me if I have my months slightly mixed up. But that's a lot of Series 5 cards in a short period of time in these decks. And they are, outside of Nico, required to make these decks work. I think you need Werewolf and Annihilus. Those are 2 of the most bought cards in this pack. If you didn't buy Werewolf and you are regretting it, you had the ability to and you are regretting it. I'd like to remind everyone who's watching that Monday, which is the day before the shop turns over, I always do a last day review. The last day Werewolf review basically said, hey, can you please buy that card? It's going to be busted. Make sure you get it. So that last day review has a lot of data and a lot of information behind it. It said get Annihilus. Annihilus is really powerful. But there was no Werewolf is just yeah, you should probably have Werewolf. I think you might want Werewolf more than Aliath. So Werewolf, yeah, get this deck, play this deck. So Korg is fine for the Ham, or you can try Forge for the Ham, or you can try Forge for Nico, etc. But you must have Werewolf and Annihilus. They're not replaceable in any way, shape, or form. Sorry. Someone asked me if I could make the numbers here match up with the numbers of turns, so I did. Hopefully you like the format and the color is cool for you. I don't know why I like this kind of blue on this background. This is the background Marvel Snap sent us. Maybe I'll change it at some point, but probably not. I kind of like it. But if you like that, let me know if you think it was better with that the first little blurb being numbered. Let me know. I don't have a strong preference, but look, it made someone happy and it wasn't a big deal for me, so I did it. All right, turn 1, Iceman Forge is better than Hood, is better than Ham. You can drop Hood just fine. Honestly, the only one that's really significantly worse is usually Ham. Turn 2, Widow or 2/1s. Turn 3, Werewolf. And you can bounce anytime, right? If you have a couple cards out, you need to bounce. Turn 3, Werewolf. Turn 4, Sentry or Bounce. Turn 5, Annie, or replay a bunch of stuff. Turn 6, Shang or Shadow King is needed. That could be Enchantress. And then a bunch of stuff to move Werewolf. And then you win. Enjoy yourself. It's a lovely feeling. This deck is really, really, and opponents do not know how to play against it right now. Thanos is decent against Annihilus. So your turn 4 and 5 player, then 17 power instead of 27 a fair amount of the time, because Thanos can fill that lane. But if they're rushing to fill that lane that quickly, it's usually with crap. And that's pretty damn good for you. Excuse me, as long as they don't Professor X that far right lane. That's not good. One last look at these. Let's do a quick variant take. We've got Hips. We've got Spider-Ham, Iceman, Widow, Annihilus, Beast, Falcon. A 6-hip deck is a beautiful deck. Midnight Sun's Nico, as always. Noir Hood, as always. The best Shadow King in the game, as always. The only good werewolf in the game for the time being. The Merge Sentry, and I ran the my new Jacinto Shang-Chi. I ran out of Shang boosters because I have both the Peach Momoko and the Art Adams ones in gold. So who would have thought I'd ever need Shang boosters? But I actually need myself some Shang boosters. The other variants in the other deck is I have the Forge. That's from whatchamacallit. What's this Forge from? Hellfire Gala Forge, because I needed a Forge that had some color and some pop to it, and this one does the job. And this is the Enchantress I got first. It's her standing on the Hulk's back, and I have this one gold, so I threw it in the deck. Next up, we're on to our weekend missions. We're going to give you 3 decks. First for the Blob, then for then for Sebastian Shaw, and then we're going to give you 1 deck that has both of them in it. So our first blob deck is Hella Blob Draw. I wanted to feature this first. It is the 3rd highest win rate of the non-Hella Thanos list. I think this one is really cool, largely because, well, the reason it's being featured is because Blob is the only Series 5 card here. Everything else is Series 3 or lower. This is a really simple deck to play. Basically, you snap on Lockjaw. Your job is to chuck a bunch of things and then Hella them back. And if you can't chuck a bunch of things, you can still often win with like Dracula, Ghost Rider, Blob. If you go Sif, Dracula, Ghost Rider, Blob, you often have a really good chance of winning that game any damn way. So this is a stupidly powerful deck. Blob really makes this sing. It's playable without Blob, but it's nowhere near as good. We also have Blob Bolt. You should know if you've been watching videos for a while, this is my favorite version by like a good amount. I really enjoy this style of deck. Moving Werewolf around is really fun. I love Black Bolt and Stature. They're 2 of my favorite cards. And Blob is just your new top end. I have exactly 1 real problem with Blob here. So Blob has anti-synergy with Werewolf. Blob isn't on reveal. You really don't want your Werewolf in the same lane as your Blob. That is, as we say in the biz, overkill. However, everything else here really works. That 1 piece of anti-synergy is fine. You very often have 1-cost Statures, 1-cost Miles Moraleses to play. Your Shadow King is incredibly good here, and you have a ton of ways to move around that Werewolf by Night. So it's a very powerful deck. It's a very good deck that you should try out. I was a little surprised to see the win rate with the anti-Werewolf Blob synergy, but hey, this is a cool deck. Next up, we have our Electro Blamp. Get it? Blob, ramp. Electro Blamp. This one has more high series cards. It's got Jeff and Eliath in it, along with our friend the Blob. But basically, you can go Electro into Professor X is the goal, and then you can go like Destroyer Blob and win the game, or you can go Electro into Professor X, or into Blob Taskmaster and win the game. Especially if you have armor where you blob. There's a lot of ways to do that kind of nonsense. Orca is just a really big thing. Destroyer is just a really big thing. Destroyer after Professor X remains good. You can go Professor X on 4, Destroyer on 5, Taskmaster on 6, just fine. You can go Wave and immediately blob into Taskmaster, which is just silly. Then Eliath probably wins you that game, just gonna say. Eliath seems like a good closer at that point, as they're gonna try and Shang your blob or whatever. This is a good deck. You can even play it relatively honestly and do something like armor into Atuma into Professor X and then Blob or Eliath to win the game. So there's a lot to like here. This deck is really good. I think this is the best of the 3, or at least the most consistent of the 3 if I had to guess. Which like makes sense. It's the highest win rate by a whole 1%. All right, next up we are on to our Sebastian Shaw decks. Our Sebastian Shaw, first 2 Sebastian Shaw decks are Surfer decks, though I found 2 different Surfer decks. I like this deck a lot. This is my favorite of the Shaw Surfers because it cuts Sarah. Sarah's a really powerful card, but you don't lose any 3s, assuming you play a 3 on 5 by not having Sarah in the deck. So that's fine. What you really lose is the turn 5 Shadow King with 2 3s. You're getting 1 3 out if you want to. Oh, wait. This one doesn't run Shadow King. Please pretend I didn't say anything. Blah, blah, blah. What this allows you to do, excuse me, is play a 3 and a 2 on 5, which often has enough power to like win you the game because you're getting that extra 2 out, and that extra 2 can get rid of Dock and Shard, for example. That extra 2 can give your board a pump for the last turn, can whatever. Yeah. Or it could just play Forge and Nova and set you up for Killmonger or what you call it, or Shaw. I think this is a really cool version of this deck. I would strongly consider cutting either America or Okoye right now for come on, brain, stop being dumb. I would consider cutting America or Okoye for Goose, and I think because Rogue will steal Blob's power, not just his ongoing, because it steals his old text box. I would run Rogue right now as well, probably over it'd have to be over Cosmo, which kind of sucks, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. But yeah, that's how I would play this deck. I think this one's really, really, really strong. And if you're going to play for Shaw, this is the way to go. This is a Shaw Move Surfer, which is basically just saying, I'm going to do the same basic thing. I've got Forge and Koye to pump my Shaw, which isn't a ton, and Surfer, obviously, which isn't a ton, but it's fine. This one also plays with the Kingpin, with Arrow and Magneto, which is always just super fun. And a lot of decks right now are in no way ready to fill the board and deal with this. So this is another powerful version of the deck. Plus, like, how often do you get to play Arrow and Magneto outside of like a Thanos deck, right? So enjoy this one. And finally, we have our Shaw reveal. I played this a lot. This is how I did the stuff earlier this season. This is one of my favorites. Basically, Shaw plus Wong plus Ironheart is wild. This is the whole deck, right? Like, I mean, I guess it's not the whole deck because you can also make 1,000 White Tigers or go Panther Zola or Panther Odin. But if you can win the Wong, Sebastian Shaw, Ironheart nonsense, and then you drop Odin on that, you're going to town. So enjoy yourself. Next up, we have the only deck I can find that's any good that has both of them. This one isn't the best Shaw deck. It's only got Okoye and Elsa really for Shaw. But hey, I'm sorry, I guess Sword and Nico for Shaw, which is not nothing. It's not amazing, but it's not nothing. Everything else here is fairly self-explanatory. This doesn't bother with any of the lockdown stuff. It's just trying to put out power. It's using a little move package. It's using Enchantress to blow up opponent's stuff. And it says, let's go to town. It's a really good deck. I'm not going to play this one. I'm telling you for weekend missions. I'd rather just do them separately, but I know some people like to try and do them together. So this is your best bet in order to do so. All right. If you need more help for the weekend missions, please check the Marvel Snap Zone Discord. The section is called Podcast Chat with the Hosts. I'll be there. So will a bunch of my friends. Ask for help. Just ask for me. They'll tag me. We'll talk. Cool? Okay. Next up, we have the first deck we're going to talk about. This is Safety Blade's deck. You might not know Safety Blade. You should. Safety Blade is one of the best deck builders in all of Marvel Snap, often finishes in like the top 100 ranked ladder, but what his real skill is, not that he's not a phenomenal player, is deck building. Safety Blade invented that deck that ran Stature and Black Bolt along with Darkhawk that took over the meta for a while. Safety invented the very first Dracula dump. Safety invented the Hela Tribunal deck before Magic was and Hela and Tribunal were actually good. He constantly innovates in the meta. This deck is really simple. It wants to really badly play either Psylocke or the Time Stone on 3, so it can ramp hopefully Professor X, but it's perfectly fine ramping out Blue Marvel, Devil Dino, or Vision. Those cards help you go wide as well, and that width allows you to win a Professor X lane, makes Professor X viable in more locations. Jeff also helps that. If you fill a location with either Professor X or Jeff, that Elsa buff starts to come into play, assuming she's there, which is still annoying. And then if you can win a location, you have 3 ways to win the damn game in Shang-Chi, Alioth, and Blob. Safety's deck is cool. That's the gist of it. Next up, we're going to look at W's deck. You can see the differences are fundamentally, we are losing Elsa for Shadow King, and we are running a Super Skrull and Dr. Octopus. So Super Skrull and Dr. Octopus replace, what the hell is replaced here? Alioth and something else. What is Super Scroll replacing? Blue Marvel, Goliath and Blue Marvel. Thank you. So Super Scroll is just a powerful card. Everyone's running Professor X. A lot of people are running Devil Dinosaur. A lot of people are running Miss Marvel. Why not have your own just for free? If you're playing a Destroy deck and they're running Null, auto wins are nice, right? Dr. Octopus ruins people's hands and lives. A lot of people really love Dr. Octopus in there. I believe that was Dara's tech originally. It's powerful. It can be inconsistent. It's Dr. Octopus. It's a high risk, high reward card, but it's also 10 power still in the deck for Blob. Most people, and I think Safety would agree with this right now, are starting to cut Goliath, realizing that Blob is just better, and so is potentially a 5 and a 1. Plus, people still have to play around it. Plus, Shadow King, and it's a busted damn card right now. Almost all of the rest of this is really straightforward and similar, right? We get the idea. And then, having tested a million versions of this, including the... Oh, wait, first, let's talk about who W is. So W is another prolific deck builder. W created the Lockdown Ms. Marvel Professor X deck that ran Medusa that you saw everywhere last season. He is the person, the very first person, who started running Psylocke consistently in Thanos. Those decks were his. People were like, what? Psylocke and Thanos? That's wrong. But yeah, that's a W innovation. He also invented the original Doom Wave, which is back when it would play Wave on 5 and then play both Doom and She-Hulk on 6. That was a W innovation as well. W is a wildly influential deck builder whose decks are also often surprisingly simple to pilot. Finally, we have Lamby. This is Lamby's version. I think Lamby's is the most refined right now. Lamby is a genius. I don't know what to say besides Lamby is a genius, but Lamby is a genius. He is a card gaming genius. He is the best player in Marvel Snap. He just won Marvel Snap Conquerors, if you're not aware. He is just a stellar player. He's also an incredibly nice person who will be on the podcast in less than a month. Also, I totally need to have W and Safety back on the podcast. It has been too long. Someone remind me of that. Thanks. All right. This version changes again very little. It's keeping the Devil Dino. Blue Marvel is back in for Super Scroll. We're now running Arrow in that Dr. Octopus spot. Arrow on turn 4 especially can often clog an opponent in ways they don't want to be clogged, which is really good. Plus 9 is not that much less than 10, but it's also Shang-Chi proof. We drop an Iron Lad in here. The hell is Iron Lad in here for? We drop an Iron Lad in here for because it's a potential extra version of a Time Stone or whatever else. And then Nico goes for Elsa's back. Oh, Nico is the Iron Lad because well, Lamby's gonna explain that himself later, and I love the explanation. It's completely brilliant, and it's another one of the ways, if you listen to yesterday's video, that they nerfed Thanos just a little bit in anticipation of Blob coming out. All right, so all of these versions have Jeff. If you don't have Jeff, run Nightcrawler. Elsa can be Shadow King. Nico can be Iron Lad or Super Skrull. Don't run Nico, just trust me. And Blob and Thanos can seem kind of important in a deck called Blobnos, where you are specifically building to play exactly those two cards. So far, so good. We all good. I'm going to keep going now. Our next is, Safety's deck is 59% in 1,000 games. W invented the damn archetype, and Lamby is 60% in only 200 because I made this kind of early. Lamby's will continue to rise and continue to be high 1%. So all these decks are of similar qualities. Turn by turn, turn 1, draw and save time, except save time stone. Turn 2, Elsa, Jeff, or more draw, again, save time stone. Turn 3 is when you're Psylocke or time stoning. And if not, you're doing the same things as turn 2. Turn 4, Professor X is better than any other 5, is better than Iron Lad. If you Iron Lad, you're aiming to hit usually an energy thing or Professor X. Turn 5, Professor X is better than Dino, is better than Vision, is better than Octopus or Arrow. And then turn 7 is Blob over Goliath. And Goliath is basically always equal to a 5 and a 1. So I think Goliath is about to be out of the meta, and I'm going to explain very quickly why. I talked about this in the podcast that's going to go live tomorrow. Saturday? Whatever. Podcast is going live soon. Blob decks run a lot of high power cards, right? Any Blob deck, we can look at all of these decks, run a bunch of high power cards because Blob wants to absorb high power cards. That's what he's designed to do. High power cards also do an excellent job when played of winning priority. That means Eliath has to fight for priority constantly. If you lose that battle, he's a dead card. Lose that battle, Blob is now Shang-Chi proof. Blob is therefore generally better in these decks, and I think just a better card right now than Eliath. All good? All right. Lamby posted a whole bunch of thoughts about this deck and Blob in general. We're going to go through them and talk about them. This is the deck of choice. After many builds, this is the best one. This is the original good cards list, but with Blob, but more importantly, card and decision-making patterns below. First, Blob has been amazing. He just solos locations. You don't need a huge Blob to win. You just need to play Blob on turn 6. It's easily above 20 with any combination of cards left in your deck. I realize Blob is the only 6 cost you really need. If not, a combination of 5 and 1 on turn 6 is usually better than any other 6. Cool. Again, you can run Eliath there. The reason Eliath is cut is because if you lose priority to all the other Blob decks running around, you just have a dead card while they have a giant Blob. That's a loss. Else is core in this build, which I did not agree with, but the explanation is good. The additional stats you get from clogging your own lane is important, helps you get enough power to win early Professor X locations, and also Jeff and Vision have synergies with Elsa. The Jeff and Vision almost sell me. I don't think Elsa's is core, but I really do dig it for the Professor X if you can get the Professor X on 4 thing. So that means a very strict curve of whatever draw card, right? Whatever draw card into Elsa, into specifically energy card into Professor X. That's a powerful lane. You're going to win that lane, but it's also obviously a fairly dangerous game plan. In that same vein, Blue Marvel is necessary for the additional points push of potentially clogged locations, which means you can replace Blue Marvel potentially with Claw, just so you're aware. If you prefer Claw, I often do. I think that there's a reasonable explanation for either, although Claw can make your play patterns predictable. I bet you if Lamby played this more, he would end up adding Claw. Sorry, excuse me. I bet you if W played this more, he would end up adding Claw. He's a much bigger fan of that effect. Also, people like never count Claw's stats, even at high levels of Snap, until Claw becomes like an expected card. They'll be like, okay, so he can add 4 here with Blue Marvel, and then you add 6 with Claw, and you win the lane. Lamby thoughts too. Arrow's good now. This deck is this deck dropping Arrow on turn 4 with Time Stone on 3 is powerful, unshang-chiable raw stats that occasionally just clogs your opponent. I dig it. 9 is a lot of power. If you're ramping anyway with Time Stone, having an extra 4/9 is pretty damn good. If you don't have Arrow, I bet you Rescue does a decent impression here. I'm not 1,000% sure, and it's way worse at the end of the game, but I bet you Arrow is probably pretty decent here. I've tried Mobius and Shadow King as Tech versus Loki, which is the worst matchup, but it makes your deck overall worse. You benefit more from just going all in on ramping a 5 on turn 4 into 5 on 5, Blob on 6 without having potentially dead cards in hand. Strong is still there, but could easily be something else. So I think what I'd actually do is turn Shadow King into Shang-Chi into Shadow King if I were going to make that kind of change. But I totally dig what he's getting at. I just value the cheaper way of doing it. And on turn 5 after Professor X, I could play like multiple cards with Shadow King, where Shang is fundamentally taking that whole turn for me. Snapping decisions. You don't always snap on turn 1 Mind Stone anymore because there's a risk of drawing both Soul Stone and Power Stone. That's 2 bricks. That's very bad for you. You really, really, really want to hit draw cards. You especially want to hit the Time Stone. Time Stone is the most important stone. Blind turn 1 Mind Stone. Snap works if you already have Psylocke or Time Stone, or Iron Lad for turn 4. Iron Lad is essentially a 5 on 4 due to power potential with his hits and decent stats. Cool. So far, so good. This all makes sense. Mind Stone not being an auto snap anymore is again another way they nerfed this deck. Next up, Okoye is worse, but a feasible replacement for Elsa. Personally, I've played a lot of versions of this already. The versions that want to run Okoye also run Lockjaw. This version is not running Lockjaw, therefore Okoye is not that good. On Lad hitting Blob, the upside of another Lad hit is too big not to run him. Essentially, he's a 3rd Time Stone along with Psylocke. Hitting Blob isn't the end of the world. If they snap, you know they have Shang-Chi, and you can retreat for 1. Or, sorry, Shadow King, but who cares? Same idea. On running Nico, never anymore, which is the other 2 decks have. So I love this explanation. This explanation is brilliant, and I think it's true. Now that Mind Stone draws any 1-cost card, compromising the chance of getting the Time Stone off Mind Stone is not worth it. You want only stones as your ones because time stone is so important. You absolutely want to draw that time stone. Everybody good? That makes sense, right? Good. Lamby thoughts 4. Why blob is good. What matters most is that your opponent doesn't know exactly how big blob can get. At mid to high levels of play, most turn to 6 decisions are made based on precision calls as to what your opponent's max output. As in, my opponent can play 14 here, my opponent can play 28 here. With blob, that number is very hard to define. Even with trackers, you can't track what's in their hand. It's very speculative. I beat a blob ranging from 12 to 15 power, but I lose if it's 16 or higher. Imagine this as an 8-cube scenario. It's difficult to comfortably stay in the game because the range is so large for blob. TLDR, blob is not good because blob big, blob good because opponents don't know how big. A blob that's 15 to 20 is scarier than a definite 28 power Taskmaster. Knowledge is power in Marvel Snap. Being able to read opponents, predict what they're going to do, is how you win games in Marvel Snap. It's how you win extra cubes in Marvel Snap. And what Blob does is fundamentally say, good luck with that. That is the true power of Blob, much like the true hidden power of Jeff is that he wins you priority, or lose you priority as you wish, based on how and when you play him and where you move him. Blob's secret power is that he keeps your opponent guessing and at a state where they can never quite know. That's extraordinarily powerful, and it makes Blob, to me, one of the best cards in Marvel Snap. Oh, I don't know what I pressed. There we go. Let's take one last look at the variants in this deck. I decided to go with the Lamby version for the variants, largely because it has a couple extra hips in it, but also because it's the one who we had all the notes from. We got Elsa, Jeff, Iron Lad, Blue Marvel, and oh, that's it. This isn't as hip heavy as I thought. It's just 4. I have the hip vision, but because I have arrow in it, I decided to run the white vision with the cool arrow I have. I don't remember where I got this, but I like it. I went Mech Devil Dino over Cozy for this one. I have Cozy Devil Dino too. We've got Hellfire Gala Professor X. I also love the Baby Professor X, but it didn't fit the vibe of this deck. This is my favorite Thanos. It's gold with purple Kirby. We've got Handle Blob, Handle Blob Mustache Blob. It's amazing, and I love it very much. And finally, we have the Peach Momoko Shang with the Peach Momoko Psylocke. The Peach Momoko Shang is gold, the Psylocke is not, but it is awesome that I didn't have to pay for it because it just came with last season's Conquest runs. So thank you, Second Dinner, for giving me a very cool variant. Speaking of cool variants, our second to last slide of the day is the variants of the day. I'm buying all the hips at this point. I've given up and I just want all the hips, so I'm going to be hip complete eventually. So I bought the Carnage hip finally, and I bought the Galactus hip. Galactus hip I think I just wanted. I think it's ugly, but I think it's cute ugly, and I'm for it. I don't like it as much, and it's not going to be my favorite over the Lifebringer Galactus. I'm also not going to run this Carnage, this Jacinto Carnage, the Jacinto Venom when I'm running both. But should I ever run only one, I now have a separate Carnage to run. That's my basic logic for this, but none of those are what's important today. What's important today is I bought Kang. Buying Kang means there are 4 cards left in Marvel Snap that I don't have a variant for. This is also a great Kang, so I'd really like it if they reworked it because this Kang is gorgeous and I want to play it. That's all we have. Oh, ignore that. That shouldn't be there. That is, this is one of yesterday's decks. If you want more Blob decks, this was like my hidden amazing deck from yesterday. If you want more Blob decks, check yesterday's video. We had 2 really awesome ones. Our boy, Doug Pie had a great one, and our friend Buddy had a great one. So you can check those out. Hit the sub button, hit the like, hit the comment. Don't miss out. Podcast will be out Saturday. Next, on Marvel Snap Zone YouTube. Next video will be out Sunday. The content does not stop here on Snap Judgments. Show some love. We appreciate your support. We got your back. Hopefully you got ours. See you Sunday. Peace.